the introduction of legal and business environment, and also we have seen that jurisprudence, which is a combination of the two important terms, juris and prudence. Juris means law, prudence means knowledge, wisdom, and how you are going to be emphasized or how you are empowered will be discussed in the concept of jurisprudence. And also we have seen that a video also on jurisprudence. Now this class I would like to continue and talk about the Indian legal system. As we know that the Indian legal system is very, very strong. And also we know very well the Britishers are ruled India more than 194 years. So more or less, whenever the strategies or whatever the law we are following, mostly which is very common to the English law. That is why most of the people will criticize Indian legal system will be copied or same like a English common law. But of course, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was visited many countries and he has seen that rigidity, flexibility of their constitutions, and accordingly that which is going to be suitable for India or not. Accordingly, he has done the modification and the changes, and they were discussed with the many other experts, and then they are implemented the legal system in India. But even though the Indian laws are mostly influencing of English laws, when it comes to the source of law, I already told you Britishers have ruled us for 200 years. So that what it was happened is same laws also we are using as on date. The primary source of the law. So if you want to take or if you want to introduce any new acts, that should be approved by legislators or by the parliamentaries. Legislative means the within the state will be implementing by the particular act. The parliament is accepted means the whole country will be following. As we know that the state government positives, negatives, performances will be reported by a governor directly to the prime minister or by the president. Every state we can able to find out by the one governor. So the governors are all the time will be having by the very, very limited powers. They are just like a Indian president, like a rubber stamp. Whatever the legislators was discussed in the assemblies, if at all okay, majority of the people or legislative members are accepted, so that will be implementing as a law. In India, white parliament, whatever the acts are implemented, that will be approved by the president. So their powers and ordinance will be very, very less. Maximum, they can able to hold it by 6 weeks. They will be think whether this is good or bad for the country. They can able to take time of 6 weeks. If they feel that this is not good, they can return to the parliament or by the legislators. And again they will be discussed. If they feel like yes, this is going to be compulsory to required, and again they will forward to the president or by the governors. In the second time when the bill comes, and definitely they will be accepted. And finally we are going to see that as a act. That is the reason I'm telling you governors and presidents are rubber stamps. They don't have any kind of powers to stop about by those things. It continues of that sources of law in the point of secondary sources. So primary source means from the legislatives or by the parliamentary members we are getting. Secondary sources means the judgments. As we know that in India the legislative systems or the constitutions has given one of the important power to the judiciary. Judiciary will not be work under anybody. It is an individual estate. So they will be observing about the governments. Are they following according to the Indian Constitution rules, regulations, chapters? If not, they will be questioned to the government why you are not following about the Indian Constitution. Sometimes, if they are not taking proper measures, adequate decisions, or the decisions are really to put in a pathetic condition of the whole country, by the time they will be insisting to the governments rethink again, or they will warn to the government, they will punish to the governments also. So this Supreme Court is highest rate of judiciary in the country. Under Supreme Court will have every state one high court. Under that will have district level courts will be very important. Sometimes what will happen? It won't be come to the court. They will have their own tribunals. For example, army. They will have their own tribunals. Police department. They will have their own tribunals. They will take actions against the concerned police person if they done anything wrong. So they will also having by the specialized courts, like you can able to see like a CBI court, their own tribunals according to the constitution. This was established and they are going to resolve by their issues. But the Indian constitution also they have gifted certain rights and also they want the people to follow by your duties or by the responsibilities. Now we'll see one side of the coin, that is what are the rights are given by the Indian constitution to each and every citizen of the country. First one, equality before the law. Whether you are a prime minister, chief minister, IAS officer, or whoever you are, when it comes to the law, everybody is equal. You are a poor man or somebody is a richest man. When it comes to the law, the Supreme Court, High Courts, or any courts or tribunals, they will be favorable to the from whom side having the justice. If you nothing done wrong, and you are running that a marvelous job, so everybody will have equality in front of the law. They will see only justice. They won't see or they won't accept any kind of indulgent activities. And everybody also they will be have a freedom to talk about their religion, caste, sex, or by the place of birth. I came from so and so location. I need to develop that. Or you need to develop about your caste, you can do it. Or you need to develop about your religion, you can do it. But at the same time, there are the limits also. You can develop your system, but you should not disturb to the others. Others caste, others religion, opposite gender, you should not be tease them. If it is noticed by the Indian Constitution, will be punished to those people in a severely. So you can talk about your views, your caste, your related, anything. But you should not blame by the opposite caste or by the religions. Third one, equal opportunities we are providing for the public. As we know that the present system of the Indian government is following roster system for employment of the public. So what is this roster system according to Indian Constitution? If in case there are vacancies of the 100. Now 100 vacancies we are trying to fill with the help of Tamil Nadu Public Service Commission. So how you are going to be filled? You need to see about age factor, you need to see about qualification. Important thing, you need to see about the caste. BC, these many posts. Forward caste, these many posts. Scheduled caste, scheduled tribe. So according to the caste, they have been given that equal opportunities for the public. And even though you have seen that the cutoff marks also to be very, very liberal for the people. So the government, the Indian constitution also, they have given that everybody with a equal opportunities. Second one, freedom of speech and expression. Everybody can talk about any other issue. Until that, you should not be torturing to those people. If government done something wrong, you can raise your voice. But same point again and again, again and again, again and again, you point out, and this is like a torturing for those people. In that situation, definitely they will be getting angry and they will be taken action against you. Even the personal issues also, which will be implemented. So whenever you are talking about anything, you are free to express about your views. Nobody will not stop your speech or by the expression. Next, you can able to live in any state in India. You can able to assemble by getting proper permissions from the police department. If in case public was assembled with the help of arms, then definitely police department will be viewed that this is a serious offense. So massively the people can be formed as a groups, and you can able to convey your regards or you can protect. But you should understand one thing: you should not carry any kind of arms. If you are carrying arms, then it is going to be called as a public offense. So definitely, police department will be viewing that is a serious thing, and they will be taking that action in any certain levels. Next, protection against the deprivatization of life and personal liberty. I already told you everybody is having the freedom to speak or to express about their views or their views are by the ideas. Everybody will show that they can able to talk about their caste, religions and anything. But when it comes to the personal life, nobody don't have any kind of right to interfere about your private life. So the government also will be saying like where there is a violence, where there is a disturbance for the neighbors or for the public, then definitely where there is a place of interference of the law, which is you are going to do all the activities are harmful for the state or by the particular city, then definitely government will or the Indian constitution will be interfered. So you should not be give any route for the indulgent activities. You should be live like a free bird. You should not disturb to the anybody. If you disturb somebody, then definitely they will file a case against you. Next, everybody having the right to give advertisement about their religions, but that should not be disturbed to them. Even we are seeing during the Sundays or weekdays, many temples or mosques or by the churches, they will make a louder voice that will be disturbance for the people who are walking on the roads. So what the government was saying, there is a system. Everybody can be expressed, or you can talk about your religion. You can give that any kind of propagation, advertisement you can able to give it. But there is a limit. 24 to 7 you are continuously giving that advertisement about your religion where which is going to be influencing the people, just convert your caste, convert your religion. In that level, by forcefully if they're involved, then definitely you will be comes under law purview for punishment. Forcefully you should not force anybody to convert their religions. That is going to be free. From Hindu, he may convert as a Christian. Christians, they may converting or they may like about some other Hindu god. So this is nothing was really right. But the problem is you should not be disturbed one to another. Last one, to move freely through the entire India, you can able to reside any part of the India. So if you can able to work any part of the state. I belongs to Andhra Pradesh and I am working in Tamil Nadu for past 10 years. I was residing here. So the same phenomena everywhere, every place, people will have a right on that. Any part of the country you can able to live. Nobody will say like you are not belongs to the my state. You won't get any kind of benefits because of you, or go back to your state. Once upon a time, we are having like that, but the Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel has taken that initiative. The whole India is a single piece. You cannot able to divide it, and you cannot able to say like you need to reside only in your state. So that is why whenever the unity comes, everybody will be remember Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel only, because he is the person who first introduced that any part of the country you can able to reside and there is any kind of obligation. The entire country is a single unitary. There is no problem for you to reside any part of the country. Next, another side of the coin. So far, we have seen your rights only. Now, these are the duties. Compulsory, you need to follow these duties. If you are not following these duties, then definitely they will take action against you. Now, we'll see what are those duties. First one, added to the Constitution in 1977, you need to be abide about by the rules and regulations. The first one is you need to be respect the ideals of and institutions, national flag and national anthem. Wherever you heard national anthem, you need to be stopped. You should not be moved from one place to another place. That is the respect you are giving to the national anthem. Wherever you found that national flag, you need to salute, and you should not be insult your national flag. If they found that if you are insulting to the national flag, and then definitely you are going to be considered as a serious offense. So the judiciary will be very very serious on that, and they will take a severe action on you. And each and every society will be having their own heritage culture. They may carry forward their own heritage culture in future generation also. But most of the time, what we are doing is we are just ignoring about our heritage, our culture, and we are slowly moving into the Western cultures. But from the beginning, the Indian Constitution was saying like we need to give such a priority for the people who are living in agriculture or especially in the rural areas or by the tribals, because they are the symbols of the Indian heritage and cultures. So the Indian culture and heritage you need to be appreciated, and not only in India, wherever you go, you need to be appreciate about your own heritage and culture. You should not demotivate or you should not be insult in your heritage or by the cultures. And another important duty to protect about the national environment. So nowadays also we are celebrating National Environment Day. We need to protect our forest, lake, rivers and wildlife. I heard recently If the Third World War comes, the basic reason is water. There is a scarcity of the water for the future, then definitely between the countries there is a scope of Third World War. So, in the era of 1947, 1977 itself, our forefathers are having a view on that. They are saying like you need to protect your forest because if you protect your forest on time, you will be getting the rains and the cultivation will be moving in smooth. And also they are saying like we need rivers because each and every agriculture crop which is going to be directly depending on that water only. And also we need to be alive, for that also we need drinking water. Now wildlife, so this environment, this earth is not only for us but also that which is belongs to the other animals. So the wild animals also we have given that equal importance, equal priority. We should not absolutely, we should not able to take by the highest priority. Equal in proportion. 50% is this earth for the humans, 50% is for the wildlife. But now people what they are doing is because of the population is increasing slowly from cities, from the rural areas, we are slowly extending our villages or our towns to the wild animals, wildlife. So ultimately, what it is going to be happen? The forest rate is going to be come down. The moment forest rate is come down from 60% to 50, 50 to 40, ultimately what will happen? These wild animals will enter to the cities. That is one thing. Second thing, when the deforestation is increasing, ultimately what will happen? There is no rains. If there is no rains, how far you can able to save the river water? So one to one, which is going to have by the interlink. So everybody having the right up to save the forest. That is why very frequently we are seeing that in Andhra Pradesh, especially Seshachalam forest, redwood is very popular. So this redwood will be cutting by many states people and they are exporting to the foreign countries. They start to earn. Because of the redwood, what it is going to be happen? They are cutting the trees. So that is also one of the drawback for the nation. Last one, we need to be strive like anything for the sake of to develop by ourselves and as well as you need to develop by our own community. Community in the sense of the whole the Indian community we need to be developed. Now, this is a brief introduction about Indian legal system. Now, I would like to share with you a small video, just like a 8 minutes video, which is going to be talking on the Indian Constitution. Sorry, criminal law. So, what is this criminal law and how
Sir,
this
bill
criminal
audio
law?
service முடிஞ்சிருச்சு.
Just a minute. I'm going to share with you.
In one recruiting season alone, Scalar had more grads join Amazon than from all IITs combined.
Stipulates that LLB program, primarily due to criminal law being taught.
I hope this is visible to you.
Welcome to the Law Simplified course on criminal law. Before we move on proper to elements within the criminal law syllabus itself, it's important to note the various sections as well as the basic fundamentals. Since this will be one of the first courses or one of the first subjects that you will be studying in your LLB program, primarily due to criminal law being taught in many LLB programs in the first year, it's an important factor to know the fundamentals, the principles, before you move on to understanding homicide, assault, sexual offenses, and other such particular offenses. Having said that, I believe it's important to outline how exactly this course is structured. First of all, we'll be going through the introduction to the subject matter itself, which will be done in this particular lecture.
Sorry guys, I have screened that long tab.
In this video, I will give a general introduction about the criminal law in India. With this video, we are starting a series on criminal law and Indian Penal Code. We will provide you videos on Indian Penal Code also from today. I am Ratnesh Parikh and I welcome you all to our channel LNC Pro. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please subscribe it and help us spread more knowledge. In this video, we will deal with three things: origin of criminal law, development of modern criminal law in India, and mental elements in crime like mens rea, intention, knowledge, etc. So let's start with the origin of criminal law. Earlier in the ancient times, when the people were not civilized, there were no criminal law in uncivilized societies. Anybody could attack anyone and anyone's property, and the attacked person would either be helpless or he would take revenge. A tooth for a tooth, an eye for an eye, a life for a life was the forerunner of criminal law. Gradually, as the time passed, the injured person agreed to accept compensation instead of taking revenge. And slowly, this kind of change gave birth to an archaic criminal law. But application of these principles remained with the parties, and slowly this also changed, and this function came to be performed by state, or you can say kings. This is how criminal law was originated and came into existence. But the modern criminal law is different than the ancient one. Let's see how modern criminal law developed in India. In British India, a charter of 1668 came, and that transferred Bombay to East India Company and directed that proceedings in courts should be like British courts. And in 1672, a court of judicature was established. This court gave punishment of slavery in cases of theft and robbery. In 1726, the Court of Directors made a representation to the Crown for proper administration of justice in criminal and civil matters. Mayors' courts were established, but the laws were arbitrary, as mayors were mercantile servants of East India Company and they had very little knowledge of law. In 1753, another charter was passed. After this, English law was no more applicable on Indians, and they were left to be governed by their own laws and customs. In 1773, the Regulating Act was passed. Under this act, a Supreme Court of Judicature was established in Fort William, Bengal. This court took cognizance of all the matters. In 1833, Lord Macaulay moved the House of Commons to codify the whole criminal law in India. He wanted to bring uniformity, as Muslims were governed by Quran and Hindus were governed by Manusmriti or their other personal laws. Thus, the year 1833 is a great landmark in the history of codification in India. The Charter Act 1833 introduced a single legislature for the whole of British India. The legislature had power to legislate for Hindus and Mohammedans. In 1834, the first ever Indian Law Commission was constituted, and according to the reports of this Law Commission, a draft was prepared for criminal law in India. It was passed on October 6, 1860, which is now known as Indian Penal Code. It superseded all rules, regulations, orders of criminal law in India and provided a uniform criminal law irrespective of their caste, creed or religion. the Indian Penal Code still meets the needs of present day society. Now we know how the criminal law came in existence in India.
I am free of diabetes and I have.
Now let's see some mental elements in crime. There are some mental elements like intention, motive, mens rea, knowledge, and innocence. These elements play a very significant role in criminal law. Let's talk about intention. Criminal intention means the purpose or a design of doing an act which is forbidden by criminal law. An act is intentional if it exists in idea before it exists in fact. As a general rule, every sane man is presumed to intend the necessary or the probable or the natural consequences of his act. Now suppose A is a normal person who is of sound mind. He goes and shoots B. It will be assumed that A intended to kill B. And this presumption of law will be there until there is a reasonable doubt on the existence of the intention. Now let's talk about motive. Motive and intention are not same. The motive for an act is not sufficient test to determine its criminal character. A motive is something which can contribute to some kind of action. Now suppose A went and shot B. Here we assume that A had an intention to kill B. But A killed B because he wanted to acquire her property. Now this is called motive. But an unlawful act cannot in law be excused on the ground that it was committed from a good motive. Now let's move to mens rea. Mens rea means a guilty mind. It is one of the principles of English criminal law that a crime is not committed if the person doing the act does not have a guilty mind. But there are some exceptional classes of offenses that can be committed without a guilty mind. There is a very famous legal maxim about mens rea. This is actus non facit reum nisi mens sit rea. This means the intention and the act must both concur to constitute the crime. Now let's come to knowledge. Where knowledge of fact is an essential ingredient of an offense, it must be proved that the accused has knowledge. For example, A has some serious problem in his brain and B knows that. After knowing that if he hits A on his head, he will die for sure. Now if B hits A on his head with the knowledge that he will die for sure, here A has committed the offense of murder. But there are certain offenses in IPC where accused will be punished irrespective of the fact whether he had knowledge or not.
Yeah, please tell.
Now let's move to
Sir,
innocence.
10, sir.
In law, every person will be presumed
Okay, we have only 1 minute video. Yeah, just 1 minute.
innocent until guilt is proved. And the burden of proving guilt will be upon the person who alleges, who puts allegation. Until guilt is proved beyond reasonable doubt, the accused will not be considered to have committed the crime. In this video, we have learnt about origin of criminal law, development of modern criminal law in India, and some important elements of a crime.